athletes are gaining all sorts of competences they develop life skills, they develop a lot of things during their career. I think that was mentioned already a few times. This international aspect, not only the languages, but simply to work and to live in a sort of international environment during tournaments and whatever. Are we making use enough afterwards? Or are we seeing the athletes just as the branding model for the organization?
Well, as you said, athletes gain a lot of skills that are needed in the labor market, especially now that the working life is changing so rapidly that that really what you need is that you learn. You know how to learn skills, you have skills to learn, you have skills to communicate, you have skills to adapt to new situations, you have skills to bear stress, you have skills to bear changes, and so on. Athletes do have those skills, and that's something that we should emphasize for athletes, because they don't necessarily realize it because they haven't been to working life. So this is something. And also the international aspect, as I was talking to him during the break, that athletes are more willing to go to school abroad, and because they are used to it, and also willing to go to work in different companies and different countries. And I think this is also the European dimension, that we all are responsible for sharing and networking more. If we in this room did a little bit of more networking and sharing, then there would be a already huge increase in that for the benefit of the athlete.
Is just a question again, maybe for somebody else. Not all athletes are gold medalists. And that means that even if you are injured, or if you are in the third league and you're finishing your career, maybe you have a different starting position in the labor market. Mm-hmm. Are we doing enough for these athletes, Jeff?
I don't know if we're doing enough, but there is one thing we should do more, is the monitoring of what they are doing. During their career and also after their career. When they're out of the sports system, they are gone for everybody. They are not a product for the market anymore. They are nothing. They don't bring revenue to the game, or they don't bring anything to the people around the table, the stakeholders, the one who put value on the sporting event. And it's important that they are being monitored and they are being followed closely at the time where they stop. And this relates to what Tuli was saying. There is a lot of European athletes who are transitioning in foreign countries. And it's difficult to transition, and it's even more difficult to transition in a country where you don't know anyone, but sometimes that's the only option you have. Let's say, I'll give you a quick example. If you're a French cyclist and you want to become a physiotherapist or kiné, the system in France is really crappy for you, and you will have to take classes and a couple of years in the medicine schools and so on. But if you go to Belgium, you can enter into a pool and they draw names, and maybe you get rid of the first part of the exam, and then you're in school for 5 years. Same thing in Spain. So those cyclists, they are not scared to go to Belgium for a couple of years and study there and then come back to France later on. But they need to be monitored, because when you haven't held a pen for 10 years and you're 35, it's quite difficult to go back to school and sit behind a desk for 10 hours a day for 6 days a week. So that's the most difficult part of the work, because there is no more sports movement, there is no more clubs, there is maybe the unemployment people who are helping you out. If you're lucky enough to have a player association, you know you can count on them, but otherwise, you're basically on your own.
May I add a little bit of lateral thinking to your question, Bart? Are we doing enough for the ones who are not gold medalists and superstars? I want to raise the question if we are doing enough for the superstars and the gold medalists. So it's the other way around, because what we often observe is a very material perspective on dual career. The stars, they don't need it. later on. They are set for life anyway. No, that's not the case. Actually, it's the other way around. No matter if you are, especially in professional sports, no matter if you're a Ronaldo or Alaba in Austrian terms, or you play second league, your career after the career will take much, much longer than your actual sports career, and it needs sense of life, it needs self-realization, it needs a task, and this is valid for all the athletes, not only for the stars or the non-stars.
Yeah. And this is a little bit other issue, but nowadays a lot of people outside sport, they change careers, like they are either forced or voluntary basis. But I think this is something that is kind of in the air now, not only for athletes but for everybody. So it's something that I don't know, it might make our job a little bit easier, because it's not so odd that you have to get your new career at the age of 35 or something.
But it means, if I hear you well, that you say also the athlete at least need a lifelong learning process, like we are advocating for everybody in society at the moment. It's not once you are qualified, you are ready, but maybe with the athletes to re-socialize to a different life, there is maybe some additional attention necessary, Paul?
I do not use the term re-socialize. It's like you weren't socialized and suddenly you become part of the large mass. There are, once again from research and applied experience, there are two big misunderstandings living still. First of all the skills you learn being an athlete, whether it's top or lower level, are transferable to the new career. That's not the case. Secondly, because you're an Olympic athlete, you can adapt always to the new career. That's not the case. Thirdly, and the example of the bank, we have another example where the bank was provided with 4 full-time employment positions for retiring athletes, paid at a salary level based on the years of elite athlete, so not at the lowest, at the good, quite handsome, no specific education required, in-service training. Okay, you say, wow, wonderful. After 6 months, 2 already disappeared. After 12 months, none of them were still there. So the people from the Olympic Committee went back to the others and said, what's going on? This is the best job you can have. We as bank, you provide. They said, well, first of all, they put me at the till, at where the client interaction is. So everyone said, oh, Wolfgang, you're the athlete. Oh, you're the athlete. First week, that's okay. Second week, but after a month you say, okay, that's enough. Second point, the transferable skill of an elite athlete is being able to self-regulate and modify their environment. In the bank sector, you cannot do this. So 2 of them said, we could actually perform better with our clients. For example, they still had the window. Let's sit at the table. The bank said, no, for security reasons, that's not the case. Thirdly, the other bank employers or employees said, oh, you're Wolfgang. I work with Wolfgang, okay? So what was actually the conclusion of that failed experiment was, yes, you could have transferable skills, you could have in-service training, but they didn't have enough competencies in order to adapt to the social context. And that's the difference with socialization, to the social context. And not all of them are able to learn them, or are able to use the skills they have in their new career.
I just have one question, because we're not going to have another discussion, because otherwise you don't have coffee, tea or drinks at all.
Je vous prie de m'excuser, je vais m'exprimer en français. D'abord, je voudrais remercier tous les intervenants parce que tout ce qui est dit est très très juste. Et en même temps, tout ce qui est dit est très discutable. Alors, ce qui m'interpelle, c'est en fait, quand on se dit tout ça, qu'est-ce qu'on fait? Alors, nous, on s'est dit, alors j'ai oublié de me présenter, je suis de l'INSEP à Paris. Nous, on s'est dit, il faut faire du cousu humain. Il faut faire du cousu humain. Ça veut dire quoi? Ça veut dire que chaque athlète a, dans un premier temps, des exigences et des contraintes d'entraînement. Il y en a, par exemple, à l'INSEP à Paris, vous avez la gymnastique rythmique qui fait 35 heures d'entraînement hebdomadaire. Donc, vous imaginez bien que ça laisse peu de temps pour faire autre chose. Et pourtant, d'autres s'entraînent moins. Donc, il y a des contraintes. D'autres font le tour du monde. D'autres ne sont pas obligés de faire le tour du monde pour se qualifier aux Jeux. À partir de ce moment-là, on se dit déjà, dans les contraintes et les exigences d'entraînement, il n'y a pas deux disciplines qui sont pareilles. Il n'y en a pas deux. Après, vous prenez le sportif de haut niveau. Le sportif de haut niveau est un humain, avec ses capacités, sa personnalité, ses possibilités, et à partir de ce moment-là, et surtout sa vision de ce qu'il veut faire demain, ou pas de vision du tout. Alors, un petit exemple, moi je suis handballeur. Quand je jouais à côté d'un avocat et d'un toubib, d'un médecin. Aujourd'hui, les handballeurs de l'équipe de France, double champion olympique, triple champion du monde, etc., etc., il n'y en a pas un qui a le bac. Et alors, à partir du moment où ils exercent un premier métier, qui est sportif professionnel, et après, qui, alors ça a été dit, suffisamment s'interrogent sur ce qu'ils veulent faire demain pour anticiper leur carrière de demain. Mais en même temps, il y en a qui n'ont pas envie de se pencher sur demain. Auquel cas, c'est à leur charge. Nous pensons qu'il faut les alerter, les sensibiliser, ça a été dit largement, sur ce qu'il faut qu'ils fassent demain pour le préparer leur carrière de demain. Mais en même temps, il y en a qui n'en ont pas envie. Alors, nous avons des handballeurs qui font des écoles commerciales de haut niveau, et puis il y en a qui capitalisent, on va le dire comme ça. Hein, parce que vous imaginez bien qu'un Karabatic, il n'aura pas besoin de... Mais cela dit, ce que je veux dire par là, c'est qu'aujourd'hui, je dis bien, tout ce qui est dit est juste. Tout ce qui est dit est juste, mais en même temps, il faut... à l'INSEP, on a mis en place une cellule d'orientation et d'accompagnement. Pourquoi ? Parce qu'on s'est dit, il faut recevoir la personne, discuter avec elle, savoir sur quel projet professionnel demain, qu'est-ce que tu veux faire ? Est-ce que tu veux monter sur le podium de Rio ou de Tokyo ou de Paris ? Non, c'est un clin d'œil. Mais ce que je veux dire par là, c'est qu'on prend le temps de discuter avec la personne 3 mois, 6 mois, 1 an, parce qu'il y en a qui ne sont pas prêts au bout d'1 an, et on prend le temps de discuter avec eux, et après on construit ensemble, on co-construit ensemble la carrière sportive et en même temps de reconversion et d'insertion professionnelle. Et ça, je terminerai là-dessus en disant, il ne peut pas y avoir un modèle européen transférable. Ce n'est pas possible, parce que dans tous les pays, les organisations sont différentes et qu'à partir de ce moment-là, ce qui va être fait en France ne peut pas être fait au Luxembourg, ne peut pas être fait en Angleterre ou ailleurs, parce qu'on a tous des organisations différentes. Par contre, on peut se donner des conditions de réussite, de créer des conditions de réussite qui font que, faisons du cousu humain pour nos sportifs de haut niveau qui représentent nos nations au niveau européen et international.
Merci, Michel.
So, in summary, Bart?
No, I think it's quite important to realize, of course, we had a discussion about the European dimension on dual careers of sport this afternoon, which doesn't mean that we are talking about an EU dimension of sport. We are talking about exchange of practices. We respect the diversity in every country, but of course, underneath, there are principles like the tailor-made approach for maybe every athlete, or the tailor-made approach linked to a certain sport, which are absolutely necessary. If we have given you the impression that we are looking for one European model, I think that was not our aim, not our goal. No. But it gives me also the way to give a sort of summary and the end up of this discussion, because I think you clearly stated what is maybe the European dimension at the moment, because we realized, all of us, that more and more athletes are going abroad. Maybe in France a little bit less than in other countries. in Cyprus, in Malta, they go, or the Baltic states, they have to go abroad to have for sort of training sessions or even go for education. So there are some issues where some countries have similar challenges, and there are some issues where it's really in one country. So we were trying to focus on the three different aspects. I realized already this morning when we were meeting each other, when we start discussing about national approaches, we need maybe more days to discuss, because it's quite interesting if you go a bit more in depth to what is going on in the different countries, and of course the differences between sports and everything. I think, if I may try to summarize a little bit, that in the first part, we stressed that these young talented players, yeah, they need maybe this international, or maybe they don't only need, they are really also, how could I say, they have to go for international experience during tournaments, during everything, and that's growing. And all sorts of sport institutes have to deal with the question how to set up this in a nice and good way. We were discussing about possible labels or possible quality criteria for institutes. We're looking for really the match between education system and sport, or even in between the institutes and the sports federation in certain issues, because if there is not a match between the two, it will not work. But I think we stressed through all our questions and through our discussions as well that we need an approach which is embedded in a structure. We need a long-term approach. And a long-term approach is asking for a long-term agenda. We didn't touch all aspects, we touched a lot of things, but I would like to thank the panelists for expressing their views and this sort of things, but I want to ask the chair of the expert group on human resources of the European Commission, Guy Taylor, to come.
He fell asleep, I think.
I think so.
Go on, Guy, move your ass here. With all due respect, of course.
While he is running this side, I want to ask you,
I know.
as a last contribution, what should the head of this expert group on EU level try to do?
Work harder? No, start with the other side, please.
Jeff, the expert group human resource, should they focus on a certain topic in the future which need more attention on the European level?
Yes, I think they should focus on the PDM thing, the player development manager side of it, and how you can bring knowledge to those resources person that can help the athletes to transition, and that would be my only comment. And also the transnationality of transition.
Tuli?
Yeah, raising awareness, I think it's the key word, and challenging all the people in doing a little bit more themselves, so then together we can accomplish more and more. So as I said before, if everybody does a little bit better the thing he's doing, so then we have a lot better world.
Great.
Also in this.
Laurent?
Awareness and cooperation. I think even though every country has their own individual problems, cooperation between countries on the European level could help a lot.
Okay. Jean-Luc?
Two things. Go deeper into the labeling thing, DC compatible or DC commitment, and make it happen that knowledge sharing goes on a regular and systematic basis.
Alison?
Yeah, go back to giving the younger athlete the right competencies and tools to manage their own self-development.
Okay. Wolfgang?
Guarantee preconditions on all levels so that small countries can actually build a DC system, other countries can optimize their DC system, and the leading countries can develop the idea of DC further, especially by systemizing knowledge of DC in Europe.
Okay. Paul?
Adding to what Wolfgang has said, awareness based on facts and knowledge, looking at the career from a holistic perspective, and joining partners more actively than we are doing now.
Thanks a lot, but before you thank the whole panel, I'd like to give the floor to Guy.
Well, how do I follow that? There has been a lot said. There is a commitment, not just sat up here, but in the room in the whole of Europe, for the development of dual career. Whether is that is as a service, whether is that as a system, whether that is as a future career or at a talent level. I think what we've heard this morning and this afternoon is, while the commitment is there, it needs framing. It needs framing and support from the European Union. It is not the European Union's right, or even it's their obligation, to support member states to deliver dual career. That is a member state issue. However, it is the opportunity for dual career to be supported by the European Union it's a holistic approach to actually taking 28 member states and supporting them in providing a working framework, the necessary expertise, the knowledge, the research behind the information. So ideally what you want to go, it's taking an American term, creating a playbook for dual career that can do small member states that don't have their own system, more advanced systems that need to develop further. So I think what I take from it is that the dual career family and the expert group have to work together to create an environment that is conducive to the development of both national programs but also cross-border programs.
Thank you, Guy. Thank you, all panelists. Thank you all for your participation and your attention.